Guten Tag, liebe Freund, hier Herr Nolin Inquisitor. Hi, this is Null Inquisitor, and this is another review for the Nations of Théah. This is Book 4, Eisen. In the Eisen language, there is no word for surrender. There is an Eisen saying, "War is my homeland, armor is my house, and fighting is my life." There's even one of the Iron Prince that once said, "The world is too ugly to be an accident." Welcome to Eisen, a particularly grim and dark country, split and defeated, and riddled with horrors of the past. Here on the cover you have this gentleman here named Eric Seiger. He is a man who was a vaticine defender during the War of the Cross and ultimately was defeated and was left a man broken into pieces, still living but with no real purpose other than his son. In the middle you have the mighty warlord Fauner Conrad Pausen. She's a lady warrior and she have at her disposal maybe the most powerful military force in all Théah. And then at the right you have a gentleman named George Ansel. He's a crazy man, a noble, a rich man, an Iron Prince also, who can no longer differentiate reality from fantasy. The nation of Eisen is grim indeed. It's a place where the Draken, or dragons, walked the earth in ancient times. It was once, and not so long ago, the most powerful military force in all the nations in Théah. The Eisen could have literally and easily conquered all Théah by force, but after a long history of medieval times came the War of the Cross. Essentially, the War of the Cross was a religious split between two factions of the church. The Vaticine Church, which is the current and biggest religion in this world, and the objectionist movement that found its roots in Eisen. There was a lot of nations involved in the War of Cross, even if the war happened in Eisen. But this bloody and senseless war lasted 3 decades. And today, even if the War of the Cross is over, its effects are last-longing and have been imprinted in the mind and culture of this shredded nation. The nation of Eisen is still living under a climate of possibility of war and infighting between the barons of Eisen, called the Eisenfürst. There is disease, there is famine, there is still remain of battle of the past. There are childs who were born 30 years ago that didn't make it, and those poor souls who have make it through these troubled times are really imprinted with images of war and violence and death and blood. You can find in this country misery and pessimist view of life, but you can also find the most proficient commander, military soldier and warrior you can find everywhere. There is a lot to say about this country. It's a country also where you have a substance called the Eisen, or dragon steel. It is a substance, a mysterious substance that is indestructible and that is so light that it can float. The secret of its preparation is kept by a secretive guild called the Nibelungen, and only them have the secret to how to forge it, how to create it, and how it is even made. What is the stuff made of? This particular steel is so rare and so, how can I say, so precious that only the Eisen first, the Iron Barons, have access to it. In fact, if your character in Eisen one day even just discover and have access to a Eisen mine, he can become an Eisen first overnight, since it's so precious and so valuable. But people will come to get your mine. You have to secure it. You don't have to just discover this stuff and become a nobility. No, you have to raise an army and protect it, of course. Because the other Eisen first are there and they will probably try to take it from you. The nation of Eisen is loosely based after medieval Germania or Germany. It is currently divided in 7 Königreichen, or province, that are led by the aforementioned Eisen first. In the current timeline of 1668, the War of the Cross ended some times ago, and officially it's been a year since a tragic incident ripped the nation into its 7 current Königreichen. It happened when the Imperator Riefenstahl, who was sitting on his throne, having seen this War of the Cross for so long, seeing his people die, he suddenly surrendered to Montaigne and Castile and just abandoned his hope to defend his country. He was tired of seeing his people die and suffer. He decided to put some wisdom in his reign and threw his arm down and surrender. What followed after that was not pretty from afar. It was not very, very beautiful or pretty. You see, when he surrendered, he gave to Montaigne and Castile some lands, about 1/6 of his nation, during a treaty that is called the Treaty of Weisberg. But one night, a mysterious cloaked figure visited the Imperator Riefenstahl in his apartment. There was shouting that was heard that night, and then a roar of anger from the Imperator himself. People saw the mysterious cloaked figure disappear and leaving the Emperor to himself, weeping like a little baby on the floor of his bedchamber. During this night, the Imperator hanged himself, leaving no heir to the throne. And following that tragic night, ending his lineage, the Imperator's armament, the greatest and most valuable possession any noble can have in this country, was split between each Eisen first. And it is said that one who can reunite every part, every pieces of the Imperator's armament, his armor, his sword, his knee pad, his boots, his helmet, will be the next Imperator, as Eisen law. But each Eisen first have parts of the armor, and they are not ready to give it to anybody. So you see, this country have a big problem. No leadership and constant battle between the 7 Eisen first. On the character creation side, the Destiny spread in Eisen used the sword and staff sort of the tarot. You have new background to create a character in Eisen that is typically from this country, like Crisis of Fate, a person who would have lost faith in God, or Theus in this instance. You can also be a Draken her, somebody in your family who died and gave you a loom, a heirloom, in the form of a Draken object. There is some new swordsman school not found in the player's handbook, like the Drexel. It's a sword fighting technique with a super heavy and long sword, about 6 to 7 feet long, called a Zwijnender. Then you have another school called the Gelligan, one of my favorite. It's about monster slaying and a little bit of medicine and dirty fighting in between. There are also the Hopkin. It's a style that emphasizes crossbow and athleticism. Then you have Posen, which is, as you can guess, a style from the province of this young lady, which is about cavalry, polearm, and riding, and just be a commander on the field, but essentially a cavalier. You have 2 other schools that focus on military tactics and commanding an army. Called you have the Stale and the other one I'm not sure if I can pronounce it. I will try. Onabwenda Bar, which is about commanding and being a scholar of sort. You have New Advantage, Draken heirloom, piece of equipment made from the stuff. Once again, it's very, very valuable, so just even a compass made of Draken can make you popular with people, and you can have free drinks or whatever. There's an advantage called membership in the Iron Guard. As you can imagine, each of these Eisen First have a personal guard called the Iron Guard, and those are the best fighter in Eisen most of the time. The rest of the book is about new rules, especially advanced rules for mass battle and war and fun stuff like that. That is typical Eisen. You also have some secrets about the nation of Eisen that is so central in the 7th Sea universe. For example, what is Draken exactly, or why the Imperator committed suicide, and what are the various secrets of all these Eisen First, for example. You have all that in the book. Of course, it's all optional, you can do what you want with the setting, but there is some pretty good guideline there, and a pretty good base to start a campaign in Eisen, or just to supplement your own idea. Eisen is also a country where the war and the desperation and the infighting, the attitude, general attitude, have awoke some horrors from the past. So you have stats for monsters like the kobolds, the Scattenman, and the Verschlingen, two super ultra powerful being and monster that even the player should fear with the most intensity. And then if you want to play one of the most badass warrior you can be in the 7th Sea universe, if you want to play a Gilligan monster fighter, not Gilligan Islands stuff, but Gilligan. If you want to play a monster hunter or a doppel soldier or a warlord or some poor bastard that are roaming the road selling his sword, this is the setting for you. It's a perfect setting for those kind of feeling. It may be the most world of darkness type of nation in Théah. So if you like vampire and those kind of stuff, you cannot go wrong with Eisen. So here you go. That was my assessment of this great book. Thanks for watching again, and see you next time.